Welcome to this project on miracles. It is a review and a defense. As an introduction on the project, I want to define in this project the miracle definition and that miracles are a confirmation of God's revelation. And it is interesting that in 2010, an American Pew Forum survey stated that 79% of Americans they don't only believe in miracles, but that it is still happening even today. The purpose of this project is really to make miracles as an acceptable possibility. We are not proving it scientifically that it happens, but it is a counter argument to anyone who asks us about miracles that we'll have a response. And that response from this project will be an acceptable possibility. It exposes in this project the liberal views, and we have a detailed response in a Christian way. And at the end, miracles are not at odds with science, would be our conclusion. Miracles had, through the years, many definitions. We have here Larmer, who said that they are revelation produced by a supernatural being. We have St. Augustine saying that they are not contrary to nature, but to our knowledge of nature. And Thomas Aquinas said that miracles are something of outside the order of nature. Of course, we have David Hume and Richard Swanburne and many other liberal naturalist people who will say that miracles are violations of the law of nature. The definition of a miracle would be that it is a supernatural event that cannot be explained by our natural laws that we are aware of, and that it is happening during a religious ceremony or religiously charged event, and it should reflect God's character. At the same time, it would be consistent also with similar things that God did in the past within his nature as a good, omniscient, powerful God. The purpose of a miracle, from the articles I collected and read, could be that Thomas Aquinas said it is to confirm the faith among believers, but he did not feel that miracles have a role among people who do not believe in God. Lorimer wrote that miracles would demonstrate the existence of a supernatural being. You have a miracle, then most likely you have a God performing them. Also, a purpose of a miracle in a fallen world like ours, where a lot of ungodly decisions are made, miracles are used by God to protect His people and to respond to their needs. This is an important slide. It tells us about the grades of miracles, and we have a lower grade of miracle where God just harries the natural process of events and in a speedy way, like a speedy recovery from an illness, like when he uh, touched the mother-in-law of Peter and the fever went away. There is a cause for lower grade miracles for the speedy thing, but we don't know these causes. We know that they exist. It just currently at this time, regardless what is this time, 1800, 1900, 2020, we don't know the cause yet. We may in the future discover the cause, but they do have a cause, just it's not known to us currently. And then higher grade of miracles are those in which the natural process was made to operate in an unnatural way, like they skipped the natural process, like a dead person coming back to life. The cause of these higher grade miracles is not known to us, and most likely we will never be able to know the cause. But still, there is a cause for these miracles. Now, the highest grade of miracles are those unnatural things that are accomplished, as, for example, when two bodies are made to occupy the same place at the same time. These miracles, they have no cause and they don't fit into the scientific explanation. So, as we can see from the grades of miracles, uh, miracles that fit within or falls in the first two types can be argued as scientific and natural since they have a possible cause. The history of miracle or miracles is rich, really, with approval of everybody. I mean, our religious history was very strong in accepting miracles. We have Justin Martyr, who held in the second century that miracles are proof of Jesus' divinity. Athanasius, the bishop of Alexandria, said that Christ's miracles made him known as the Son of God. And Origen had a very intelligent discussion about miracles, stating that they are very important for the uneducated people who are not really impressed with the rational arguments. And everything was well even until the mid 19th century, where naturalist and theist explanation of miracles were complementary. So even until that time, miracles existed in very much harmony among all opinions. So what happened that made this division among this one camp to be two camps? They say most likely it's not like scientific discovery proved there are no miracles. No, it's like the change of people's position from being conservative to being more radical, liberal in politics and in opinion. The religion was rejected as a part of the established privileged society. We'll come to that, in fact, when we study in this article the history of England related to miracles in the last 3 centuries. What they discover is something really important even for us today here in the West. They said that these naturalist people occupied every possible position in the scientific societies. They focused on the science education, shaping the next generation of scientific teachers, and making sure that the pipeline of scientists that come, they are talking only about naturalist science education only. They didn't reject the theist Christian opinion, but they didn't talk about it. They focused their talk about naturalist scientific education. And little by little, the Christian theistic scientists and their interpretation became less common for the next generation of students who were trained only in the naturalistic perspective. And then once this environment gained dominance in the scientific community, then actively they started to erase or remove any theistic explanation or opinion, and uh, it became only naturalistic opinion. And the victory of this naturalist opinion in removing the Christian science opinion from the community was done so that later on there will be no mentioning of miracles, no mention of Christian point of view, and they made sure that professional positions, resources are dominated by them. We really see that today in the West, in schools and universities where professors are all liberal and have liberal opinions, and that's the result of this pipeline producing the same like-minded people saying the same stuff, all of them, and there is no room for a different opinion or someone else like a theistic, a Christian, or someone who believes in God and miracles to offer their side of the equation. And as a result, the students who come from under them, they are educated in one line of education only, which is the naturalist one. This is the history. I want to talk about the historians and the horizon. Historians are the people who tell us what happened in the past, and they look in the documents and history, and they write their conclusion, interpretation, and for example, Brutus killed Caesar. All right, so this is going to be looked at by historians, and if they are secular historians, they will have no room for any supernatural explanation or reporting any supernatural God related event. They feel that the existence of God is not something that should be in the history reporting. But in denying this a priori, denying God's existence or God's intervention in history, they are removing the possibility of the discovery of new theories of any uncertainty and attempting to explain and investigate reports events in the past. Historians they will share a number of assumptions that they rely upon, and these assumptions are open to interpretation and adjustment and revision constantly, and they should be really. And why exclude God and miracles from this possibility as well? Miracles should not prevent the historian from carrying his business as usual, calculating the most probable explanation of the evidence with an open and mind and specific questions to the event. But what's happening is different. What's happening is that there are events that interpreted depending on the belief, the worldview of the historian. One of them is the postmodern challenge. Here we'll talk about it, and uh, the postmodern challenge is that there is no essential distinction between fiction and history. And instead of having the past record imposing its story reliability on the historian, we find that it is the historian's point of view and interpretation that assigns meaning to the historical text. As a result, of course, miracles are entirely determined by the subjective judgment of the historian himself. And then also we have this analogy and rare and unique event. Uh, and we have a human experience that over time leads to the principle of analogy. You compare something that you are aware of it today with something that happened in the past, and if they fit, then that's fine. For example, you have a great military leader in the Roman history that the text is saying he fell from his horse and he broke his neck, for example. Then, for you as a historian, the analogy will be okay, it can happen, happens even today, so they will accept and report this event. If it starts to say, for example, that Jesus Christ, who died by crucifixion, is risen from the dead, they don't have anything currently to compare it as analogy. And as a result, they will not look at this report in a positive way. When historians take into account these religious claims, they will be biased by a secular opinion and they end up writing a secular history. The miraculous is precluded or reduced to just a symbol. Maybe his risen means like risen symbolically, like a spiritual risen, or it's an illusion or a myth of something different. They should not, these historians, define history based on their common beliefs, but sadly, that's what usually happens. Instead, let us look at an example. I give some examples like Brutus and Caesar, someone falling from a horse. But what if it's not having any analogy in your current date? Well, physicists they have theoretical physicists. who regularly they put a theory of something that they cannot explain in a scientific way by observation. No one has ever seen the beginning of the universe, black holes, quarks, all of these strings and gluons and the electron and neutrons and all of the interaction that is going and most probably will never be, at least in our lifetime, but they put theories, a scientific or a theory that is most likely to explain where did we come from, how did it happen, our existence, even without a scientific proof, but they put a theory for that. And this is very common to happen. Why not historian, when they come across the resurrection of Christ or a miracle, why not they should do the same, report the event, leave the cause of it open to theories that may explain that later on, but should not reject it completely. Sadly enough, everyone has an agenda and has a motive for how they present the history. And there is an agenda whenever we study the life of Christ and his deeds and actions. The major obstacles to historical examination of miracle is that it is depending on the presupposition and the worldviews of the historian. These are few liberal views on miracles. I read many reports on them and articles, really. And one of them will say that miracles are just a fairy tale. It's a nice, beautiful story of a good fantasy that Christ will come from another supernatural world and will heal the sick, will bring happiness to a world that is full of suffering and misery. And this is what the Bible is all about, and the miracles appear to happen in this way. It's just a fairy tale. Another opinion, Gerd Thiessen, believed that just miracles are just an imagination, an invention. Poor people living in a rural, uncultured area, and these stories to help them live a okay life, but it was not meant to be a historical thing to be recorded. Another opinion about miracle is that just a magical technique. There is no difference between miracle and magic, and miracles are introduced through a technique, and it's a manipulation of some sorts, and then it is just an illusion, and there is no difference between true and false miracles. Really, Christ himself faced the charge of using magic uh, to perform his miracles. Well, we know that from the scripture, people have used magical techniques to do something wondrous, yes. Origen himself has responded in a very intelligent way, saying that Jesus clearly, and as Jewish people, instructed his followers not to do magic, not to dabble with that. So it's not even possible that he will do the same or his followers will be using magic to spread their teaching. If they have invented the story of Christ's resurrection, the disciples would not have, risked their lives to die for a lie that they have invented. Another opinion saying that this is a Greek Hellenistic tradition where there was usually a Greek hero that he will come and he will be a divine man. Rudolf Bultmann was one of the people who supported this idea. And he said that the miracle story tend to be equated with the folk traditions and it should be eliminated, really. But as a response, the writer of this article said that the dating of the Hellenistic material that they looked at were from the third century, which was way after the Gospels were written. They took so many diverse sources to gather this idea, and it is really a construct or an invention, really. Finally, these miracle stories that Christ performed, it follows a narrative, which will come to that again. Jesus always after or before a miracle had a sermon, had an explanation, had a story, had a request of faith, and the two were connected strongly. It's not just performing a miracle. And this one also very similar opinion, liberal. Let's say that this is just a copy of miracles that happen among non-Christian people. But really, Christ's miracles were very different. First, they are not a temporary fix with a potion. They were permanent. Someone healed, he is healed. Someone resurrected, he will live the rest of his life until his time will come. And he did not use a magical device or a potion or something like that. It worked with a mere command. He would tell the waves to be quiet, the wind to quiet, the demons to be cast out, and so on. And it has a moral quality. He didn't take money from the people he cured or healed, and they were just to confirm that he is a son of God, but not for a selfish reason, but for the salvation of the people he is involved with. On this one, Hume's book of miracles, we will talk about it later on because it's really very important. Um, a psychic power, people are saying there are new science we cannot explain, like telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, and maybe people performing miracles, quote unquote, have the power to do these things. It's not miracle, it's just people with power. Other people in this article said that there are no such thing as miracles. It's just God is just a crutch for people to get rich and to have peace against sickness, disease, protecting them from harm. If we're going to open the door for all of this, we might as well open it for fortune teller, ghosts, witches, and all of that stuff. Another opinion said God is not acting now. When did you hear of a miracle recently? If there is a God, he is not interested in his creation, and since he's not interested, there are no miracles. But really, who has the power to say that God is not working in our lives? Uh, who has even the right to say that miracles are not happening today? We have many, many reports of this happening currently. So the argument itself is very weak. One of these New Age movement article. These are two articles. God is our partner, so God is minimized to a partner, and it's a process in our evolutionary process where God is great, but He is not perfect. He responds to my need, yes, but this is all to make me grow so that I will be ready for the next stage of my evolution to become better human being or stronger or greater. So these are the ideas of these liberals. Most of them are really easily, you know, counterbalanced. Let's see some of this here. The connection between miracles and teaching. As I said, there is a strong connection between the two, where whenever Jesus in the gospel is performing a miracle, it was connected with a narrative, a story. And after the story, or you will understand that there is a purpose behind the miracle performed. You cannot strip the miracle from the story, otherwise, it will be missing something. And since they are all connected together, you're almost going to vouch that he said this, then this miracle happened because they are connected together. Otherwise, if you want to deny the miracles completely, you will have to rewrite every sermon, every lesson, every story Christ has said. This is a very important article about science and creation, and it talks about a portion of David Hume's objection that miracles are a violation of the natural law, and we have something that is always happening with natural law, with science, that it's always the same in the past, now, and in the future. There is a uniformity. And since everything is uniform, miracles are breaking that uniform. It's a violation of natural law. Yet, and could be our response to anyone saying things like that. When something is not uniform, it doesn't mean that it is against the laws of nature. It just simply obeyed a law that either it is taking precedence over the current, or taking obeying a law that we don't know yet. I mean, no one can say or claim that we know all the laws of nature that will ever exist. So no one can claim that. So maybe, or possibly, they are obeying a law that we didn't discover yet, or one law is taking precedent over another. I'm bringing two examples really to highlight this important point. If you have a hot air balloon floating in the air, we all know that the gravity, will fall down towards the center of the earth. So if this balloon is not falling and it's suspended in the air like this, then this is, we're going to say, a violation of the natural law, when in fact we know that it is using another law of nature to perform the purpose of it. Likewise, all airplanes and so on. Also here, I brought example of the laws of the gas, like Boyle's law, Clark's, and I hated these laws, all these equations, but I remember them for a purpose. These are proven laws of physics, but they will say if you keep one of them constant, then the other two we can put the test on. So if you keep the temperature constant, the volume and the pressure we will work together, we can have a result. But what if the third one is not constant? So if one variable, say the temperature or the volume of your experiment, was to change, then the law will not yield the same expected result, but it will yield something different. This is not violation of the laws of nature, it's just a different result. So if scientists had total knowledge of all natural laws, then nothing would ever appear supernatural. But no one can claim that. No one can claim that. So what appears to be inexplicable is actually only temporarily obscured. Perhaps later on we discover how Christ was walking on water, what kind of law of physics he was using to perform this miracle. There is nothing in religion that is incompatible with the belief that all what God can do in his power is in harmony with nature. Um, Naturalists will say that the laws of nature are deterministic, which means that event A will always give rise to event B. This is deterministic. So if God is performing a miracle and event C came instead of B, then they will say, no, 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 this is a violation of the laws of nature. Well, no one said that the laws of nature are deterministic. They are indeterministic in such a way that A may lead to B most of the time, but sometimes God may elect that A can lead to C. Why we are saying that it is indeterministic? Because you are dealing with human beings. I mean, the world can be deterministic, yes, if you are dealing with stars, planets, movement, but if you are dealing with human beings, their chemistry, hormones, it depends on atoms, quantum mechanics, and all of that. You cannot say that one thing will always lead to this. There are other factors. And God performing a miracle would simply meant that he chose a result C to happen instead of result B. This is a nice article that said that don't bank on miracles to prove God's existence. He found that if God performed more miracles, would people still believe in him more? And he found that even if people believed in him because of miracles, it will be mental, like demons believed in God, but didn't follow him, didn't accept him. Or no matter what you do, people will not believe, and they will have another explanation like aliens perform these miracles or stuff like that. On this article was a little bit challenging on the quantum level, but it is really interesting that no one knows exactly how God performs the miracles. And maybe we in this article he said that he looked at the right condition at the right time in the right place to perform it. Miracles always they involve action from God and asking us to respond in a special way. Moses, put your staff in the Red Sea water, it will part. What if Moses didn't do it? Moses, throw your staff, it will turn into a serpent, and so on. Random events may occur at the quantum level, and God is aware, since He's God, of these events happening. And He may pick the right moment to ask people to respond. And He knows that at the quantum level, if you respond at this time, a miracle or an unexpected result will happen. God can be working with His creation at this level. He offers these possibilities. In fact, we know that an eastern wind came when the parting of the Red Sea happened. So God knew the weather pattern and the time of that event to happen. Now we'll come to Hume's argument, and Hume had two halves. One is that he didn't approve the reporting the witnesses of the miracles, and we'll talk about it now. The other one he talked about it's a violation of the law of nature, and we already spoke about this possibility and how can we respond to this. As far as reporting, he said that the testimony of people regarding religious miracles something I cannot trust, and he put four reasons. He said that these testimonies of a miracle have been not uniform, not extensive. They have reports that conflicting stories and few people. And then on his second reason, he said that there are people are psychologically prone to believe anything, and they don't have a good sense or good common sense to report things and discover if it is a miracle or not. On his third reason said that these miracles and these reports are coming from areas where people are ignorant, barbarous nation, gullibility, dogmatic people, so I don't believe that. And that's his third opinion. And then finally said, well, Christians said they have miracles. Well, you know what? Other religions, they claim they have miracles. And this will cancel that. Well, it's not very strong argument if you look carefully to it, because uh, the reports that came from miracles, Christ miracles, it came from a lot of people, not just few, and it came in so much of a uniformity that we have even Paul saying you have 500 people, most of them are still alive, to report that they have seen Christ resurrected from the tomb, as alive and talking to them and so on. So this is not a weak, few lacking uniformity report. Second is that the early believers were not really gullible and willing to believe anything right away. We have the women who came reporting the tomb was empty. They didn't believe them. We have Thomas said, I'm not going to believe unless I put my finger in the nails mark. The early Christians were not willing to believe easily that Jesus was resurrected. So that defeat the second point. The third point is that people are just barbarous and ignorant. Well, the whole Western civilization is based on the Christian principles. So that's not really a strong argument to say barbarous and ignorant when Christianity that started in the Middle East, in Palestine, its principles are now in the West. That's number one. Number two, when these miracles happened 2,000 years ago in Palestine, the Mediterranean world was not, you know, barbarous. That this is you have Romans philosopher, Greek philosopher, you have Corinth and Rome, you have trade going back and forth. These are people who are exposed to what the best world can offer as far as knowledge and ideas. So I wouldn't say that these are gullible, ignorant people. Lastly, if he says Christians have miracles, other religions have miracles, it's more of a confirmation that the topic of miracle exists, not cancel each other. Plus, we have to differentiate between miracles performed from God, coming from God, and then demonic power or magician like the Egyptian magicians who made similar acts like Moses. Of course, nowadays, no one would accept Hume's opinion about labeling some people from a location as barbarous and ignorant just because they live in a special location. So no one today would really accept that opinion. So in any case, we responded to all of his point. Hume's point really is that he didn't like religious miracles for for his opinion, and he stated that these miracles were necessary so that the church would control people. And really, his opinion was not the case against miracle, but uh, but it's against the knowledge of their occurrence. Several problems with his view is that he had a very small number of testimony of his friends, himself, his surrounding, and since they did not see a miracle, then he assumed that the whole human history did not see a miracle, and it's a very small sample to examine and to bank on it. He preferred his own experience, and he did not like the experience of others about miracles, but we all know that we gain knowledge from the testimony of others. I mean, the whole history of humans is about someone telling us about what they saw. We, as kids, we learn from our parents, our teachers, read books, and so on. So, passing on knowledge and information from others is really important, and he cannot just deny that. All right, and I'll go to the principle of analogy, which is just talked about last. Really, is that if something happened in the past, I want to compare it to something is happening today. If it doesn't happen, that it's against the principle of analogy. But every principle has a purpose. In fact, as a physician, every test has limitation, but has benefit. And if you pick the right test, it will give you the right answer of the question you're asking. So what is the question you're asking? Then pick the right test for that. And the same here. Analogy has limitation. In fact, it's never meant to cover everything about history. If something is falling outside analogy, outside the principle of analogy, you should not exclude it a priori, as we mentioned before, but just make that as an instrument for a limited purpose and look for other way of explaining the event of miracles in the past. A philosophical argument is a very sweet article saying, is it possible that God, the great, good, powerful being to exist? They said most probably, philosophically speaking, it is more to exist than not. And then they said, would this God, would we expect him to create a universe? We said yes. Would we expect him to create humans? And the argument went into saying yes. And if God exists, created universe and humans, then the existence of miracles are not impossible. Multiple attestation is that if you have a story found in several sources, separate sources, then it means that this story really happened at that time. Liberals are saying, we're not saying it happened, but at least it's as old as they claim it to be. So they want to say that if multiple testimony came from multiple origins saying that Jesus resurrected, they want to say that we're going to acknowledge that the happening happened at that time, but we are not saying that it happened. Maybe it's a mistake, but all of them are agreeing that it happened at that time. Anyway, I mean, it's a opinion. It's good. Uh, it's valid actually. Uh, though, if you have a car accident and you have witnesses and they come with a little bit of a different story, it doesn't always mean that this accident didn't happen. A car accident may have different opinion. In fact, if all the witnesses have the same story, you will doubt that they were just, somebody paid them to say that. So, in any case, multiple attestation will tell us that the story of miracles that claimed in the scripture has been in existence very early in the history of Christianity. And that is something strong. It's not a later invention. We talked about uniformity of human experience, and if there is a cause, we don't know. Maybe later on we'll know, but there is a cause that makes miracles uh, in harmony with natural explanation and natural laws. If the cause is unknown to us and will not know it, there is still a cause which will make miracles uh, possible logically and scientifically. There was an article saying that if you create something that did not exist before, a miracle, then this is a violation of the conservation of energy because you cannot create energy and you cannot destroy energy. I want to clarify that as Christians, we don't want to believe really or follow that philosophy or that principle because if energy cannot be created or destroyed, then how come everything like the Big Bang theory happened? Because at that time, energy was created. What we believe in is that the amount of energy that is available is constant. It may change from one shape to another, but it is constant and it is conserved. We do not believe that the universe or our nature is a closed system, which means God cannot interfere from outside. We believe that God is able to intervene in this open system. All right. Um, one of these points is very interesting. If two cars had an accident, would you uh, say that they followed the natural logic laws of nature? And it would say yes. The speed we have to know, but can you predict the result, the outcome of the accident? You cannot, because there are other parameters which will remind us of indeterministic. Um, yes, how many people were in the car? It makes a very big difference in the outcome. So there is a distinction between the laws of nature and then the event, the material, the people, the cars that are involved in the law in action. It is impossible, in fact, to predict when you play a billiard table the balls that uh, Newton's law will not be suspended, but how many balls are there? What's their position? If you know that, it will be different from one position to another, and it's very hard to look at the laws of nature alone without looking at the position of the people, the balls, the events that the laws of nature are working on them. In conclusion, I cannot take miracles from Christianity. Christianity is just one grand miracle, which is Christ's resurrection. If you take this away, we don't have anything in Christianity. The natural world is not self sufficient to answer everything, and science cannot satisfy our human nature because we have spiritual needs, we have things that science cannot fill. And this gap, this vacuum, can only be filled through or by faith and religion. In this review, I'm not giving a proof 100% that you can say it will prove that miracle happened. That's not my intention. My intention was to say that there is an answer that we can give to people who ask us or contradict us or object to the Christian claim for miracles. Thank you for listening, and what follows will be